What's the registration number of the car?
Look at P9 in that. Mine's probably again, right, exactly. Try to see what's in, if there's
This thing in your hand. Here's
express came into me for I'm up at last. See, it's up. My Outlook Express is up. I'll just put that one in there.
you do it early. I know.
So what's the happening in here, this situation? What's the happening here with?
I don't know. She says he's away up to bed.
Oh.
But she says how long he'll stay drunk, I don't know.
Superior to ours, regarded this earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely
Sometimes the Welshmen
they drew their plans against
because of good voice of that.
rewarding work with children. And not picking at it.
Ah, yes. How is your daycare center doing?
Wonderful! Being with those kids gives me a high only morphine can top. You got any?
Always with the morphine.
Peekaboo! 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 Peekaboo!
Dad's been doing that for 2 hours. I've never seen the baby get tired of it before the adult. Mama, will you sing that crazy song with Mom? Remember the last time Dad sang us a torch song? Yeah. Hey, Homer, I thought you were only going to do this daycare thing till your knee was better.
Yes, but then I discovered the joys of raising children.
Well, better on me.
I'll do it here. 147. A wee bit away from there.
Going extra cold. I have it spot on.
When we make bread, we make crullers. We've been on a product called Toasty. We're at the top of the line right now. We put them out like gold records.
Good boy?
Aye. Oh, it's just for you. It's just for the bar. So have fun.
Oh no, here's his camera out again, dear.
Ricky Tomlinson and Amanda Redmond. Who was it that attracted you?
Did you phone earlier?
I thought it was in the computer. I couldn't get back on.
Yeah, I've actually
So
been
what you up to today?
terrorist branch today. You are clearly very interested in this CD. They've asked us to hand it in.
No, I know.
I was phoned to Auntie Pearl the other day, and that was Megan. Megan is trying to blaze Cumbernauld. That will be taking place in Perth. That's all the stuff we've got there, and then the crusade is going to come up in Glasgow. A day's conference. We could miss. Oh, see this man?
This thing, you know. So that place is just a digital thing with sayings, you know. So just if you should have seen this stuff, Galaxy you should have done it in the system cover. Watch music. I assisted I'm trying to work with these people, you know. So, just as well, I was just this is not just as well, you know, just do this. Just
Monday morning.
But
Have you ever had the builders in?
Opened the week.
Hi, Farida.
I've heard that as well being a big actor, you own a production company, lots of hotels, lots of pubs. So roughly, how minty are you?
Reasonably.
Oh,
You know, I wouldn't say.
you're
I'm not rich
loaded.
in Branson, you know, but we're doing all right.
You're buying up half a whale, aren't you?
No, we've got 4 in Brooklyn, but we're doing no.
Sorry, you've got 4 hotels in Wales?
No, 2 hotels. No, actually 3. Just the most 1, 2.
How many hotels have you got?
2 in Wales.
I tell you, you know you're wealthy.
Unction on the topic. I'm going up because God is ready to lift you up. Every participant will benefit from a
And tonight's the gift. That's lovely. Aye. Aye. That's good. We got a nice Aronia tape, you know, Fiona, Johnny Morrison's. She gave us a nice tape, and it's over the Fiji. You know, I think it's at Fiji. It's a revival that they've got there right now. Aye, it's tremendous. There's some of those little islands. Well, it's absolutely right now. It's these since 2000, the country was a mess, and since revival has broken.
I'll tell you, when you go to the chiropractor, you gotta go and keep going. But how many of you know one touch from Jesus? I see a new door opening up for you, sister. God's gonna make a way where there is no way. You say, Brother Pop-Up, I didn't see the way. That's because there was.
In Jesus' mighty name I pray. It's done. I feel that release, Liz. I feel it. Weren't those some of those glorious testimonies that we read?
Next week I have some really sweet ones.
Oh, I am so
Many, many more.
Many, many more, Liz. It's just such a joy to have you here today. The Bible says one will minister to you, pray for you, write to you. Write to us. We value, we cherish your letters. The address is on the screen.
And voice advert using phone. Ring us now on 08707 606 126 or email us at access@revelationtv.com. The notice board, telling the world through television.
807 You've never read it. You can't see in it. The pages are through there.
DBS correspondent and is an author. And David, I'd like to get straight to the point because we're going to be dealing with some things that people perhaps have a different perspective on, particularly with regards to the situation in the Middle East. Now, we know that God's heart is for everyone to come to an accurate knowledge of His will and purpose, and on that road to learning what God's will is, Israel is key. But to many people who'll be watching the program, perhaps they're Christians, perhaps they're just people that are flicking that will perhaps be new to you and challenge you. Recent events that are happening almost by the minute that are heading to what the Bible calls Armageddon, or a time of great trouble. What would you say to us to help us to get a proper perspective from God's point of view?
Well, very simply that the scriptures are abundantly clear about them, deal with them, reveal Himself to them, and in terms of the current events in earth, would be over the city that I've called home now for, since 1984, 17 years I guess it's been, Jerusalem. Not Rome, not London, not Washington, or all these other world capitals that one would think might set off a world conflict, but Jerusalem. So we have the Jewish people going back there, and as a journalist, late 19th, Jerusalem. The current conflict isn't primarily about Jerusalem, but that is a central side issue that Osama bin Laden and other Muslim leaders have brought up, that world leaders have been in the United States, with all of the Muslims demanding the eastern half back, with the Israelis saying it's our holiest site on earth, we're not going to give it back, with all of the nations having to take a position
that have been, I'm going to be very open here, brainwashed into through the media, into looking at Palestinians with such empathy and such, if you like, vehement hatred towards the Israelis because of the Palestinian issue. Now, we know we've seen in the past that where they've had stone-throwing children coming up against Israeli tanks and guns. Now, obviously, this causes an uproar and world sympathy on a grand scale, and it makes Israel's side of the story look very bad.
And not really receiving what the will of God is for Israel and the Jewish people. Well, first of all, Howard, I'm glad that people look with compassion on these issues, because compassion of the Arab-Israeli conflict, and only written after I'd lived in the region for 10 years, and I'm there 20 years now. Plus, I still believe everything I wrote there was accurate. And the macro picture is, we don't talk enough about this, about remnants that come to the Lord. So there's good things happening in that realm. But indeed, in terms of Islam, we have to research it very, very carefully, look at it very carefully, and with respect, because it is a religion and it's held by over 1 billion people, but that has caused these attacks against the West to take place. Because the fact of the matter is, and I've researched it quite deeply, is Muhammad himself, their exalted prophet, the seal of the prophet, quite deeply, is Muhammad himself, their exalted prophet, the seal of the prophets, was the quintessential jihad warrior. By that I mean he himself led from them. He gained resources, finances through these raids. People were killed in them, of course. He himself participated in at least 14 or 15 of these and organized many others, maybe up to 40. And after these raids, then his fellow tribesmen said, we'll recognize this guy. He gained power, not to say too much, but basically through violence and through maybe even scaring his countrymen, terrorizing his countrymen into following him. And so when Osama bin Laden and others today say picking up the sword is a legitimate means of spreading the faith and going against what they call the house of war, which is the non-believers' Islam, and some take it to an extreme, and it's not just some actually, quite a few do, potentially many more could. Thank God many Muslims don't. They've moved away from that.
11 months ago, I went to a Muslim demonstration here in England, and I've never been to one before, and I went with my camera, and we wanted to get some voice pops from people, interviews, just to find out what's on their heart. We started to follow the march through central London. Careful what to say. That was the advice that we given to each other Muslim, and here that the vehement hatred that the Muslims have towards not just the West, as is now in recent events shown, with the World Trade Towers being annihilated, but actually the hatred towards the Jewish people. And that it seemed to me, as I kept quoting with the different interviews I was doing, that it's written in the Quran that there will be no peace at all in the Middle East until the Jews end up in the sea or dead or annihilated.
We want to tell the world that we're not going to stop our fight for our Palestine. This is our land, and it's a land for all Muslims all over the world. To be honest, I think if the governments don't make a stop...
Lost their faith, and there is then possible to have peace there, and we will prove it to you.
So it said to me, as a layman, that no matter what takes place as far as the negotiations are concerned between any world leader or the people involved themselves, there is no way there's going to be a peace settlement, whether it's a land issue or a territorial or political or whatever, until the Jews are absolutely, totally annihilated, they kept saying, as is written and prophesied in the Quran, there will be no peace. And I thought, the world doesn't know this. And to me, when you've got Bush and Blair trying to bring this coalition, and there's nothing wrong with the Muslims, and in fact I believe very soon that they will close programs down like this, that are trying to show another side to this. Underneath there is no way that there's going to be a negotiation for peace. So what is the answer, David?
Well, I think we do have to be careful in saying the Muslim faith doesn't inherently hate Christians or Jews per se, but what it does state goes beyond them, and it states very clearly that Jews and Christians will be submitted to Islam. They will be under the rule and authority of the Islamic truth as they see it. The Quran is supreme, the Bible has destroyed. From there through Spain into France, where it was stopped in a military fashion, and in the east was heading through, according to their worldview, according to what the Quran says, it should have continued expanding over all the earth. They should have, within a few centuries, been ruling over all of Europe, over all of Asia. They should have been the ones to have discovered North and South America, Australia, New Zealand. They became cupbearers. They became servants, slaves in some cases, to European nations that were colonizing them and adding insult to injury in the name of Christ often to spread Christianity to them. This is a reversal of what the Quran says should have been the situation. So this has brought up a hatred for Christians in the West that's been there all along, but it's been lying dormant when the Western nations were so powerful they had no chance of war, all the non-Muslims. They believe that, and Jews are non-Muslims as well, and they see Israel as a Western Christian implant of Jews backed by Christians into the heart of their Islamic land that they have ruled virtually unbroken for 1,500 years apart from the Crusades. This is a horrendous desecration to them, a horrendous reversal of, as we have to be careful, and it is true there are many Muslims that are Saudi billionaire who reverted to a fundamentalist view. Then they take up the jihad cause. They have potential to do that, and it must be waged, and the Jews certainly must be eliminated from the Middle East as a sovereign people. Now, they don't necessarily say they should all be killed, but they must not rule. They must not have a state that rules over Muslims in the Middle East. You and I know that that would basically mean their annihilation, and the hatred is, in reality, very, very deep there, and with their annihilation. The Israelis know that, so they are going to fight back with all they've got. The West doesn't realize it.
Nations and the Jewish nations came from that same father. You know, that's where the family ties start, don't they? They do. So it's such a shame that they don't recognize that that promise that God gave to Abraham was specifically to Isaac and through Jacob, and therefore to Israel.
Respect them, and there are many Arab Christians, of course, today as well. We have to make that plain. Most are Muslims, but there are Christians. But sadly, to explain this reversal of their Islamic expansion, they see Israel as a colonial, and they say this all the time, a colonial implant. The Western colonists from Europe, their homeland, their ancestral homeland, rebuilding cities that their ancestors built originally. Thousands of years ago, and they persecuted in their wanderings, and they needed a homeland again, and they're returning. They are not colonialists who don't belong there. They are not white Europeans of it. It's so interesting to me. Their ancient language, Hebrew, is virtually identical in many, and many of the